What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 684 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk Hot Tags of the Week podcast. We are, of course, Tony Mango and Robert Felice.
Hey, everyone.
And, of course, we always want to know what you have to say, so drop your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure you are hitting that like button. Make sure you are hitting that subscribe button. Ring that notification bell. Check out all the other means you can help us out. The join button over there on YouTube, channel membership, the Patreon, Redbubble and TeePublic for merchandise. Thanks button that's over there. Of course, chat it up on the Discord server too. No monetary help on that end. It's just completely free to chat it up throughout the week. Check out.
Why don't you chat me up about the hot tags?
Yeah. Why don't you listen to us chat it up about the most recent Darkcast, which was the one to watch of the year that we normally do around this time frame as a regular thing, but we figured we'd move that over to the Darkcast here. So if you want access to that, you have to join either the Patreon or the YouTube channel membership. But in the meantime, we do have hot tags to get into. And I just realized I just blew through this intro. Wow. That's a minute into this, and I already did all that. I don't know why. I'm not speed talking or anything. But we have a couple pretty big things to talk about, to be honest, about some major shows that had happened and some pretty important things that happened during those shows and all. We didn't get an opportunity, I think, to even talk about something like Tiffany Stratton's cash-in, since that had happened on SmackDown. And that's another thing that, even just as we started doing this, I was like, oh, that's right, we never talked about Tiffany Stratton. So I guess let's start back there, go back in time to Friday before we get into this weekend and all. Stratton's cash-in is going to be addressed tonight on SmackDown, which at this point they are starting to fill the card up a little bit for Friday Night SmackDown, although it's still sort of lingering as not really committing to a ton of things for a 3-hour show. We know we're going to get LA Knight against Shinsuke Nakamura. It seems like we're probably going to get a rematch for the Women's United States title. So they're going to fill in the blanks here and there and whatever. But as far as Tiffany Stratton's cash-in, we all saw it coming, not necessarily on that show or how they did it, but I'm glad Stratton's champion. I think she deserves to be in that spot. What about you?
I saw it coming for the minute that WrestleVotes was like, they're rewriting the show for a title change.
Oh, I mean, once that happened, then it was it's got to be either that or it's the tag titles, but the likelihood that it was the tag titles is probably low.
Naomi, and I was like, yeah, I don't think that's where they go. I love Naomi, but I don't think that's where they're suddenly going to go.
The only way I think that could have worked is if they had Naomi win and then Stratton immediately cash in on her, which
they could have done as she finally got the belt, and then Stratton cashes in. What a bitch of a heel.
And see, Nia, I was never going to turn on you. I was always going to cash in on somebody else, but I figured that probably wasn't going to be the case.
Yeah, and I think Tiffany's going to be a fun champion. Full disclosure, I don't think she's champ for long.
I think she's heading to Mania and dropping it there at the very latest.
I will reserve judgment for the puzzle pieces we're always reserving judgment for until I figure out where Becky's going, where Charlotte's going, and where Bianca ends up. And I guess to that extent, however the championships shake out with this whole transfer window thing.
Which they've not done anything for. This whole idea of the transfer window seemed like they were going to settle this by around this week. And instead, they've just not committed to anybody being on any brand. It's just, I guess, instead of a means for them to shift the roster around and put that in place, it's just their excuse for, hey, look, it's heading towards Mania season, and we really want the beginning of the year to have a lot of people on different shows. So can you just allow us to have cross-branded things for a while?
I think that's fine, except for the fact that you got to figure out that World Championship picture. Because I think SmackDown needs Gunther. And I think that because he's on all the fucking branding, that Netflix wants Cody. So figure that out at least. But back to
Well, I
Tiffany.
got a theory though about this transfer window. I didn't think about adding this to the hot tags, but now that we're talking about it, I should bring it up. My theory is that the transfer window isn't an actual mini draft trade scenario, and instead what they are doing is like the roundabout corporate speak type of, like, you know how much I fucking hate that. Their way of being like, we want going forward
For everybody to be on everything.
No, not for everybody to be on everything going forward, but for it to be, once it gets to the beginning of the new year, that from basically January 1st until WrestleMania.
Until the draft, the transfer window's open.
Yep.
So everybody can go everywhere. Yeah,
Because at that point, they're going to be like, well, because Mania, we want to make sure that we can have people go between the shows, so that way we could always go, look at that. It's, Cody's on both, or Roman's on both, or whatever. And they've done it all like that in the past. And then they've just been like, yeah, it's the pitch meeting thing. I always talk about Ryan George has a great reaction to movies and the way that they write things. And it applies exactly to WWE, which is just, hey, shut up. They've done it years and years and years and years. And I think that this might just be their means about being like, why don't we just say that there's a transfer window and that everybody can kind of just move around, and they're all going to be distracted for Mania season as it is. Royal Rumble is a cross-branded thing. And by the time we start kicking the gears going for WrestleMania, nobody's going to care. Then we can do this big, hey, the draft is happening after Mania. And then at that point, they set the roster for the rest of the year. Unless they commit on SmackDown tonight to at least one person being definitively, they are on SmackDown now, I am firmly in the belief that it's just anybody can go anywhere on any particular week if they want to, but they'll be tentatively classified as a part. Like Penta is going to be quote unquote on the Raw roster. Yet if they want to have him wrestle somebody on SmackDown, he just will.
maybe.
And I think like the champions are mostly set, but just because Tiffany Stratton's the women's champion on SmackDown doesn't mean she's stuck on there now, because she's not the SmackDown women's champion. You know what I mean?
Now, in theory, I like that a lot more than what they've done in past years, where it's just, we're gonna mix it up and we're not gonna tell you why. I like the idea that you can say, okay, there's a transfer window open, so it's the Wild West. But I still think that they have too much. I say the truth, I think probably what fucked them over is they have to finish the Cody Kevin Owens thing. And Rock.
I mean, Rock's. We're gonna get into that when we get into the Raw stuff for sure.
And I mean, we're gonna talk a lot about The Rock on this particular episode of the Hot Tags, or at least I am.
Yeah, well, another hot tag is going to be the everybody thinks that they know what's happening at Mania, but they even contradict themselves every single time they report about it type of hot tag. So, with Tiffany Stratton, like you said, is Becky Lynch going to end up being in the mix there because they have history with the NXT title? Is it going to be Charlotte Flair? If so, why the hell is she not back yet? And is she just going to show up at Royal Rumble? Is this going to be something where they need to fill in the blank a little bit with Tiffany Stratton against Nia Jax for the next month, and they're going to fight at the Royal Rumble, so they don't want to show somebody like a Charlotte because they want to make her a big surprise at the Royal Rumble?
A Rumble surprise. Because what I genuinely think is happening with Charlotte is she's been out for so long that you go, do we bring her back on the first SmackDown of the year? First 3-hour show, big deal. Or do you go, maybe we save her for tonight, for example, because we need something for the second show of the year? Or do you just start going, Royal Rumble's right there?
Mm-hmm. You're not far off. Royal Rumble, like, it's later than it normally is.
But it's right there.
But it's, what, 3 more episodes of 4 more if you count tonight, episodes of SmackDown, and that's it. It's just, we're the 10th right now, so we got the 17th, the 24th, the 31st, and then the next day after that's Royal Rumble. So
do you save her for that? I mean,
realistically, you can look at this and go, okay, tonight Tiffany Stratton does a whole. She's addressing the WWE universe, aka she's cutting a promo about how she won the title.
Yeah.
Nia Jax can come out and be like, "Yo, bitch, what's up?" They can fight. It gets broken up. Nothing happens. Maybe they get an announcement for a match later on, or maybe they get like next week. It's going to be another match between Nia and Naomi and whatever number one contenders. Then it's Nia cutting a promo on the 24th, and the 31st they fight each other, and then on the 1st they fight at Royal Rumble.
You're also forgetting there's the 25th.
Oh, that's right. There's Saturday night's main event. So maybe that's actually at Saturday night's main event, you can cut an extra week out of it, and it's just next week. So this week, Stratton cuts promo, Nia Jax comes out, she's all mad. Next week's number one contender match, maybe. 24th, it's a confrontation again, and on the 25th, they have their title match. On the 31st, Tiffany Stratton comes out and goes, "I don't care who wins the Royal Rumble, I'm going to win anyway." And then either Charlotte pops up there, which I think is a mistake because they could always do better when having people show up at the. It kind of depends. So here's another little side discussion. They've had years where they've been like, we're not going to announce jack shit for the Royal Rumble.
In terms of people involved?
Right. Like, we want it to be a surprise. We're going to announce like 7 people. And you're looking at the roster and you're like, dude, there's like 90 people that are available. What do you mean you only have like Randy Orton and Rey Mysterio and John Cena confirmed, and that's it? We know Big Show is going to be in there. We know so-and-so. And then there's other years where they're like, hey, we're going to have Mickie James in the Royal Rumble, and she's from another company. And you're like, why are you spoiling that ahead of time? Like, so
that was that 20, was it 23 or 22?
22, I think.
Because that was the Ronda one. That was the weird Royal Rumble where Charlotte enters as champion. And they did the whole... Look, let's be clear here, especially now knowing what we know today.
Vince was bored.
2022 was clearly just Vince's kind of bored. He's kind of going out of his mind. He maybe knows that he's at the end. You laugh, but
I mean, yeah. Well, case is closed today for the one thing.
Yeah, we'll get there. But he did a whole bit at WrestleMania that year where he got stunned by Austin as like a
big send me off of his character. Yeah,
maybe the whole deck was just oddly shuffled that year. And it was also, they didn't have a lot of active women. Because remember, that was one of those years where they had just laid off a bunch of people.
That is right, because that was the like a 3-year period where it was like April such and such was like, Black Wednesday or whatever. And they would just go, all right, here goes like a fifth of the roster.
It was like they went through a bunch of years where they didn't release anybody, and then every April and every November they released like a dozen people. But I say all that to say that realistically with Tiffany, I personally don't see her making it to Mania with the belt, because I am firm in, until further notice, it's Charlotte, Bianca, Becky, Rhea, and you shuffle those pieces as you wish.
It can't be Bianca, Charlotte, and then just Jade does nothing. There's no way. The only way that could happen, I think, is if Jade is so injured that she's out for Mania. But
Jade is legitimately injured now.
Right. So
she is already at the Performance Center, so maybe she's not out for the Rumble. But you gotta remember, there's always that. Or, look, the best case scenario to me is Tiffany does actually get a Mania match, because I don't want it to always be the same 4 women.
Mm-hmm.
And I already, spoiler for the one to watch, but you should check it out anyway. I've said I definitely think this year is the year that we get a pseudo horsewomen versus new age diva angle. And I think that takes you through
the New Age Divas, different version of the New Age Outlaws.
Well, you know what I mean.
You didn't know?
There's a lot of there's a lot of blonde bombshells in WWE right now.
The pendulum has swung a little bit further away from where it was during Evolution, where it's more like you get Chelsea Green, you got Tiffany Stratton.
Chelsea, Tiffany, Liv, even though Liv was technically hired before those two, but still, what she represents is a little more of a swing back the other way. I think that's going to be a major talking point of the year. That's just me. So I would like to see Tiffany get a match with Charlotte because I think she can hang with it. The thing that I'm getting nervous with Charlotte is I don't want you to start Cena like going out like Cena did, where one day John Cena was like Super Cena to the point where it's kind of annoying, and the next day it's like, dude, you're just wrestling fucking anyone. You're not winning. Like, you think that just putting over everybody is like a make good, and I don't want to see Charlotte do that where it becomes, well, I had my run, so I'm just gonna wrestle whoever, and it doesn't matter.
You could say that this applies to a lot of politics and a lot of just how the world operates these days, where it's like, oh man, beating Cena would have meant a lot when he wasn't a guy that was never around, but now that he's not around and it doesn't mean as much anymore, and now he's willing to have everybody lose, and then that doesn't mean anything, and then it's gonna go, well, see, I did it. They're kind of in the same, like, you want to get rid of the ability for anybody to have any influence and power over something, and then hand over the keys and go, well, now you have the control. And I don't want to see that happen with Charlotte either, where it's like, people care less and less about Charlotte Flair. Let's be honest. Like, she's a future Hall of Famer, sure. She can definitely break that 16-time world title. Yeah, 100%. She could pop in at any moment and immediately main event the show, and it would make sense in the way that, like, she's already built up this legendary career, but she's multiple years past the point where people would just be like, oh, okay, well, there's no other option. Like,
she's the opposite of Roman for me. Right? Like, if you look at 2019 Charlotte and Roman, they're both completely at the top of their game, arguably overpushed. Charlotte wins the Rumble that year. No, sorry, she wins in 2020. Roman goes away because of COVID. Roman comes back stronger. Charlotte kind of starts going through the motions. After that Royal Rumble win, to me, Charlotte has been going through the motions.
Yeah, she really has been kind of checked out, which makes it to where people don't care about her as much. And then, realistically speaking, even though it's been a talking point that's been put out there about the idea of, like, when she returns, she's going to have, like, a shift in character. What is she going to do? Dye her hair? She's going to do the same character. She's never done anything other than the Queen Charlotte Flair.
I don't like... Now, again, I want to bring up Roman, because Roman did a tremendous shift in character.
Oh, he had a huge shift, because he actually was like, can I do the character I wanted to do?
And I think if you saw any special where he basically says, yeah, I was trying to do the good company guy thing, and it wasn't working. But I can't see... I worry that, in my perspective, it'll end up being more like a Young Bucks shift, where I go, no, just do the thing you're good at doing. So, well, who knows? Maybe she doesn't have a huge shift in character. Maybe it's awesome. You know?
There also is the idea that maybe, and I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in this, but maybe it's not Flair Stratton. Maybe it's Bliss and Stratton. Because Bliss is perpetually talked about as being like, imminent return kind of a thing. And WrestleVotes just put up a thing the other day about how, like, they're working on merchandise options for her and all. If you want to have somebody that's, like, not been in the limelight for a while, it's been 2 years since Bliss wrestled a match. Her last match was Royal Rumble 2023.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So with 2 years of time separating her from being like, oh, we've seen this a million times, and we've never seen Stratton and Bliss in the ring together.
See, but Stratton and Bliss to me feels more like, and now you can say this, a U.S. title feud.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm not saying I'm against it. I don't know if that would be their main thing. But then again, sometimes they do that. Look at Bailey and Io, where it was just like, this is what we're doing because we know that all of the attention is over here. So you could get that kind of a match.
And I mean, credit to Bliss. Always got to make sure I don't say the first name so my echo dot doesn't go crazy. Credit to her as she is. She is a multi-time former champion.
Oh yeah, I mean, there was a rule on this podcast a few years ago where you didn't count out Bliss and you didn't count out Charlotte.
Yep. It was like a variation of the Brock Lesnar rule. Different. Instead of not talking about it, it was like, don't count them out. Unspoken rules of that, and don't get your hopes up about Bray Wyatt's promos, and don't curse the idea of Daniel Bryan's going to do well because then he's going to get injured.
Speaking of SmackDown and stuff, what are they going to do with Solo?
So I put up a question of the day for EWN today of just like, the fuck you do with these guys now? And my answer ultimately was, I don't know. Because they're not advertised for tonight. They just lost.
Will they be advertised for Monday? We don't know where they fit right now. Let's go back and talk about Raw, because we can bounce back to Wrestle Kingdom and stuff when we talk about AEW. Monday Night Raw this week, of course, was the Netflix premiere. They made a big hoopla over that. It did really well. Everybody seems to be pretty much on board with a lot of what is going on with that. Like the feed worked well. I didn't have any issues. Did you? I didn't have a single issue. I thought it was great.
Seemed like it was pretty clear picture. I know a couple people actually messaged me.
Better.
Yeah, a couple people actually messaged me being like, this is better than what it would be on USA. Only one friend of mine had said that he was having some issues, and I think he just like needed to restart his Netflix, and that was about it. What do you think about that opening video package where Triple H was like, here are heels, here are baby faces, we're scripted, we're just gonna say it. It was basically a variation of the your intelligence are insulted.
Bad guys.
Yeah.
First of all, great promo. Maybe from an on-screen standpoint, my favorite thing Vince ever did was that good guys versus bad guys. Look, I don't know why people really got upset about this. And I'm like, have you watched or followed anything in the last forever? I mean, because let's be honest, even when I was younger, it was like they were already kind of openly going, come on. But yeah, it's okay for them to say faces and heels and good guys and bad guys. Paul Heyman openly was like, yo, can we get an Emmy?
Yeah,
that's where
he's really campaigning for that.
That's where they want to be. That's where they've always wanted to be. But I think right now the world is probably more receptive than ever to that being a possibility. And yeah, it sucks. The fan in me hates that they're just like, yeah, the face and the heel, boo. But it's like, you know how many YouTube video essays I watch where they're just randomly like, and Harvey Dent's heel turn, and I'm like,
yeah,
dude, does it have to follow me everywhere?
I mean, it's baked into people like us so much that I don't know how many times throughout the week I'll say something where, shit, there was something even like 2 days ago or so where Caroline asked me something. I forget what it was now. And I mean, ultimately, it doesn't really matter the exact like specifications of what it was, but it was something where she was like, maybe we were watching like Creature Commandos or something, and it was like, oh, is he normally a bad guy? And I was like, he's kind of a tweener sometimes. And then I was just like, I just rolled with it and didn't think about it. Then she started laughing, and I'm like, what? And she's like, oh, he's a tweener. And I'm like, oh, yeah, shit. I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, why are you laughing? You know what I mean?
Right, like, yeah. And like, at this point, that finger up emoji, that's just the, Roman Reigns tribal chief emoji to me. It's not going to be used for anything. Like, I'm not going to point upward at like, you see, this is the thing. No, I'm going to use a carrot if I'm going to do that. Not the carrot emoji, but the carrot symbol. But like, yeah, babyface, heel, tweener, and all. They could get around.
I thought it was a good video.
They could get around saying that stuff if they wanted to, and they could say things that are basically the same and kind of, get right up to the line without crossing it and say things like, in WWE, like, the story's never finished, and, there are, over the years, there's been monumental heroes, and there's been dastardly villains. And, like, then you can kind of go, okay, well, they're not really saying it, but they are.
But they're still saying it, like...
But then when they go, hey, there's heels and baby faces, and this is a dusty finish, this is whatever. He's got a crimson mask now, but then, Oh, that was actually a thing I was trying to explain to her the other day, was the phrase... Mask? No, not crimson mask, but the phrase, he didn't get all of it.
Oh, like when
somebody like whiffs a kick,
go off,
and like it's like they went for like a super kick and they completely missed, and then they go, I didn't get all of it because she like threw something in the trash can or something and like just about missed it or whatever. And I'm like, oh, you didn't get all of it, and she's like, well, what? And I'm like, oh, here you go. Here's your wrestling lesson for the week.
It's weird. I have to catch myself like that in conversation too, because these phrases just embed in our brains. But I honestly, I thought it was a good video. I thought it was a hot start.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, look, you get the standard comments out of the way of Triple H just says he doesn't want to be in the middle of things, and then he's in the middle of things. It's like, yeah, he is. Vince would have been too. It's just they're just the face of it, And
there's like a difference, I think, between the way that Triple H shows up and the way that Vince would get in the middle of some things, because right now, so far at least, Triple H has come out and been like, I'm the face of the company as far as like creative and behind the scenes, because Nick Khan doesn't show up and do anything unless it's like, here's a picture of him shaking the hands of some Saudi dude or something. But Triple H will come out and be like, I'm going to give the point to the new champion, or I'm going to be the guy that says, welcome to WrestleMania, we had this major box office record or something. But he's not involved in being as much of like, and now I'm going to lead a group of people that are going to fight on my behalf or something,
He hasn't gotten there yet. I think we got a good 5
probably
years
will at some
before
point.
We get there.
Yeah. I liked this opening thing, though, but what I didn't like was how the opening video package goes into Triple H being like, we love Netflix, it's a Netflix era, which at this point it's 5 different eras, and then it goes into The Rock coming out to also hype up the Netflix partnership, which that was just, all right, you sucked off Netflix so much by the end of this episode that their dick is raw. And, raw, I didn't even think about that. And like, okay, The Rock wants to come out and be like, I too am leader of this company and I love this Netflix partnership. I wouldn't have liked that, but I get it from that ego stroking perspective. But you don't need to have him go and look at Cody Rhodes in the crowd. He's been a great champion and I'm such a big fan of that guy.
So this follows weeks of reports that Tony didn't even want to touch on this podcast, because for weeks they've been going, do you want to touch on Sean's report about how it's like it might be Cody Rock? He's like, no, we'll cross it when it gets there. And then the minute I heard Rock get cheered, I was like, oh, he's gonna fight Roman. That's where my mind went. Was like, okay, they reset the course. It's gonna be Rock and Roman now, isn't it? And then Rock just goes, Cody, you're such a great champion. You've done a great job this year.
Love you, man.
Love you, man. And I'm like, all right, he's just feeling the baby face. I'm still thinking he's gonna fight Roman.
Like, okay, I've gotten out of the idea of wanting to fight Cody, but Roman, you motherfucker, you shouldn't have lost to Cody, or
right, because he was like, hey, I acknowledge Roman Reigns and I'm watching your match closely.
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool.
Maybe he interferes in the tribal combat match and he's like, I know at this point I can't beat Cody for the title and keep the title hostage because Netflix doesn't want an absent champion, but I can have my Ulafala match with Roman Reigns at WrestleMania.
And they did the big thing. And look, let's be clear, because it's Rock, everything is fluid. They could end up fighting Rock and Roman at WrestleMania anyway. You know, everything is fluid. But they did the whole, oh, he's the High Chief of Samoa now. They said his Samoan chief name. I forgot what it was.
Couldn't possibly tell you off the top of my head. It starts with an S, I think.
Sauli or something like that. And it's like, I'm like, okay, he's going to fight Roman. Then Roman beats Solo in a match that I don't feel bad kind of brushing over here. It wasn't that great.
You know what it was to me? A lot of people were going, oh my God, this was fucking great. This could have main evented WrestleMania. And I'm like, okay, look, it had interferences at the end that made it feel more special than what it was. And this could have been at WrestleMania, but it couldn't have main evented.
Well, I disagree. I think it could have main evented. It just would have been one of those
Night one
Rock and Roman main events where you go, you know what you were getting, but it wasn't something you're going to remember in 5 years.
Yeah. So Roman Reigns beats Solo Sikoa, and it ends up being through, Jacob Fatu and Tama Tonga come out, but then Sami Zayn and Jimmy Uso come out and, kind of counterbalance it and all. No appearance by The Rock at that point yet.
Kevin Owens came out. For 5 seconds, I thought, oh shit, Owens is going to help Solo. And then Roman kicks out of the stunner. Cody takes out KO. And then Roman hits 2 spears. 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the Fortnite ring. By the way, there's a Fortnite ring.
I hate that. I hate the ring apron so fucking much.
So Roman wins. Heyman is putting the Ulafala on him, and you can see in the distance the Rock's coming out.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, yeah.
Okay, is this going to be where Paul Heyman low blows Roman Reigns and he's working for The Rock? Or is this going to be where The Rock goes, fuck you, you can't take that because I'm the High Chief and whatever?
And then Rock puts the Ulafala on him. They're doing the ones for 3 minutes with The Rock just in the background. I'm going, don't turn your back on him. And then the segment just ends.
And Paul Heyman's in between the two of them. He goes out of its way to stand in between the two of them and look
in the shot,
and look mad about it, skeptical and
I don't
you stole it.
You know why they did that though?
Because you think that they want to continue the Solo and Heyman thing?
At any fucking point, they're just gonna do this match. Like I said, they could do it at Mania this year. They could do it at SummerSlam. They could do it at Mania next year.
But they killed it by doing this because it's Rock's just anyway, the Cody story, done. I'm a big fan of that guy. Love him to death.
That I was mad at. I was more mad at the Cody stuff because
and Roman, you're the tribal chief. Love you too, man. Everything's great. I have no issues with anybody whatsoever. See you on NXT, which we'll talk about in a minute. But
which I didn't like that stuff, especially with Cody, because it was man, you had people guessing for a year.
Mm-hmm.
What did The Rock give him? And where are we going with this? And The Rock is mad at Cody, and that's a made match whenever you want it. And then they just didn't. It's The Rock decided, well, I can't do it, so I'm going to pay it off by acknowledging their success because I can't have the match.
To me, it feels like he gave up and that they said, we're not doing any of these matches, so can you just be The Rock again? Because we don't want you to be final boss Rock. And we don't plan on actually having these matches. Because now, how do you come back around with this without it looking stupid? We had the whole stupid Cody Rhodes gives up the title match for The Rock just to go, never mind. And that was dumb, but that was at least not planned. This, they could have just been Rock could go, if Rock needed to be out there after Triple H to say, oh my God, when it comes to Netflix. If he needed to come out and do that, he could have came out there and said, man, I'm looking forward to this Netflix partnership. This is so great. I'm also looking forward to that tribal combat match you're going to see in a second. I'm going to be keeping my eye on that very carefully and whatever.
No, but
and then just said, and I see a lot of people in the crowd. I see Cody Rhodes, you motherfucker. And just don't do the, we're all good. Because if you at least leave it open, then people can go, all right, nothing happened here, but they didn't kill it.
Well, that's the part, and this is the part where you get kind of hypocritical because I just said I was cool with the whole faces and heels thing in the cold open, but I can see them justifying it in that way. Like, no, like we were having a real moment. I was really telling Cody he did a great job as champion. I wasn't the final boss in that, and you know when they get around to it, because they will at some point. That's gonna be the logic they use. Oh, I was just being genuine, and you know that was me talking, not the final boss or whatever.
I
But
just think that they can't come back around with that without it being bad.
And I also want to point out, because Callum isn't here, that was like an hour
Yeah.
of the show. And at that point I go, oh, this is everything Callum hates about WWE.
Yeah.
That was my main takeaway, because there's some stuff here we can skip over, like Jey Uso beat Drew McIntyre, but he had a 30-minute entrance.
That was a completely pointless thing. The most, like, the biggest talking point about the whole Jey Uso and Drew McIntyre thing was what's his face coming out and vaping.
Travis Scott, and he got a 30-minute entrance, and I'm like, oh, this is everything Callum hates about WWE. This has been. It wasn't even like backstage promos, guys. It wasn't even like, I'm Kathy Kelly here and I'm with the Pure Fusion Collective. It was like match, long breaks in between and ads, and oh my god, Netflix, how great is Netflix?
Like,
and then
John Cena cuts this promo, which we'll come back and circle around, but like the Roman match happens, and there's the long stretch of everything with The Rock after. That goes to a Cena promo, and then a vignette about Logan Paul, and then the women's title match. And
then a vignette about Gunther somewhere in there.
Yeah, Gunther had that was after the Jey Uso thing, where he's just like, "Hey, I'm Gunther," like, because he didn't really say anything. And there was like the backstage thing, which had Gable, an American Made, where he just goes, hey, remember how you said that Penta was going to be here next week? Well, this week? Well, next week. Give me a luchador. And Adam Pearce is like, I've got one in mind. How about that luchador we're advertising that should have been on this episode?
They were very clear to not advertise the Rey Mysterio tag match for this week. They left that ambiguous. But they certainly enough revealed that it was Penta coming in, if you didn't know. And then had Chad Gable go, I want to fight a luchador in a singles match. And just like, do you want to just announce Pentagon? Like, you signed him? Like,
yeah, just do that. Because they're doing this, like, I think I got the perfect guy. And then Triple H afterward on this post show is like, look, you're all not dumb. You know who the fuck it is. And then, yeah, it could have just been like, and next week, Pentagon is going to be here, and if you don't know who he is, holy shit, you're in for some good luchador action or whatever. Like, yeah, they could have done this better.
Announce that you signed him, like. But I guess, do you want to circle back to the Cena promo?
AKA, look, I'm a loser, but I mean, maybe I can win the Royal Rumble, I guess, which he's not going to do. But
I completely disagree.
I am firm that he is winning Elimination Chamber instead. It's a possibility that he wins the Royal Rumble and he just does something else at Elimination Chamber. And maybe they do, let's put it this way. Everything with The Rock, of course, is throwing this all for a fucking loop. And I still cannot wrap my mind around the idea of how do we get CM Punk versus Roman Reigns in the main event if that's not for a title, and if it is for a title, how do we get a belt on either of them? So every piece of this puzzle can ruin anything I'm about to say. But Gunther most likely, I think, is walking into Mania as champion. And I think Cody most likely is walking in as champion. And I'm very much disappointed to think this right now, but I'm pretty certain Randy Orton's going to fight Kevin Owens. It's not going to be Randy Orton.
Oh yeah, they're dragging that out.
They're dragging it out way too much. It's going to be Randy and Kevin. They haven't even had a
match yet, have they?
If they did, it's been like they did that brawl, they didn't. Right?
They were supposed to fight in Saudi,
and they did the brawl instead.
Yeah.
So it's going to be Randy and Kevin at Mania. And that means no Randy and Cody, which then means who does Cody fight? Well, Cody can fight technically Roman, technically Punk, or Cody can have the Cena match. And Gunther, in the meantime, technically he can fight Goldberg, but I don't think that's necessarily going to happen. I could see that happening more at like a Saudi show. What's the Saudi show that's going to happen after Mania? Did we know yet? No, we don't.
Probably not.
But it's, it's probably not going to be King of the Ring. It's probably not going to be Night of Champions. Whatever they decide on making it. I think that's when that's going to happen, probably.
Was it King of the Ring last year? If it was King of the Ring last year, then it probably is King of the Ring.
It could still be. They could just bring it back again. But Gunther is rumored to go up against every fucking person under the sun at this point. Dave Meltzer and Billy Body and all these other people that are like,
that is
hey,
maybe the worst name you could mention, but okay. I'll let it...
Anybody who gets posted on this, like, it's Wrestling Observer says it's going to be Gunther versus Logan Paul or so and so, and it's like that. All right, that doesn't make any sense.
Was it that from Dave?
I think it was. If it wasn't, they're all the fucking same. So yeah, all of them are going.
Except for Fightful,
think I know.
Subscribe to Fightful Select. Please give me money.
Like they all say that they think that they know what the big scoop is, and then there's 7 different possible options, which means either WWE has 7 different possible options, and they're all right in hearing a story that it could be so and so, or they're all just making shit up and doing the same thing that we're doing right now. Because I'll tell you right now, I don't fucking know, but I can say, hey, Drew McIntyre could fight Cody Rhodes, or
that would suck.
Seth Rollins could fight Gunther, and then we can get Rollins, Gunther, and Punk and Roman, or we can get a triple threat between Roman and Rollins and Punk, or we could get Punk and Gunther, or there are about 10 people who are all hovering around that type of range. And Logan Paul, I have no idea who he could go up against other than John Cena. That would be like, that's the big match that you can do for Logan Paul at WrestleMania that hasn't been done before. And I really don't think that they should do some match that's already been done. Like, we shouldn't have Rollins and Logan Paul. We shouldn't do Punk and Logan Paul. Because why would he be like Paul Heyman? Here's my.
Well, remember that favor is an ambiguous favor,
right? He wants some donuts at the next press conference. That's what it is.
Like, they can cash that in at Mania. They can cash that in September.
Right.
And if I'll say that.
Realistically, it's Randy Orton and Kevin Owens is one of the only matches that seems locked for Mania.
I'll say this. I think right now the main thing is, do we have something for Cena? Yes. Because I think this is one of the first Manias in a while where people are probably politicking like a motherfucker. Because there's a lot of moving puzzle pieces. And if I'm Punk, I'm not waiting till next year. You never know what can happen. I want my Mania. Let me have it. Like, even I just did an article yesterday about how Rollins said to Van Vliet, he's like, yeah, after this Mania, after I main evented and opened in the world title match, I felt such a weight off my shoulders. And I'm like, yeah, Punk probably wants that. And I'm guessing he's going to bitch and moan till he gets it. Now, that could be he fights Gunther.
It could be just, I want to have the ability to say, even if it's on night 1.
Even if it's on Saturday night, I want to say WrestleMania closed with me on top.
I fought for the championship, even if it's not the WWE championship. I fought for the world title, for a world title, I should say, in the closing match of one of the nights of WrestleMania.
Because if you go back to that podcast that he did with Cabana, he was like, no, I'm not an idiot. There's one main event. The match that closes is the main event. And he wants that. And realistically, he should get it.
He should, but I don't think that that's this year. That's the thing, is like, if Gunther wasn't champion and Rollins was champion, absolutely 100% Punk should win the Royal Rumble. He should do that. They should be night 1 of WrestleMania, or maybe even night 2, depending on what they have for Cody and whatever. But like, I'll say right now, I don't have as much interest in a WrestleMania that says it's Cody Cena, where all you're doing is making people boo Cody and diminishing his babyface run, and either Cody drops the title to Cena, which I don't think is the right decision, or Cody beats Cena and people are upset in the main event of WrestleMania, and Gunther either retains his title over Rollins or Punk or whatever, and nothing happens there, or Gunther drops the title to Rollins, for instance, and Punk fights Roman in a non-title match, and God forbid too that ends up being like, that's the main event of night 1 and it's for a non-title, whereas Gunther and Rollins becomes the opener of night 2 or something, like.
And that could happen.
I'm starting to feel like Gunther Rollins for the title night 1, Punk and Roman main event non-titled night 1. Maybe they even go so far as to say it's a number 1 contenders match or something stupid like that. I don't know. For
night 2, for the second night.
I don't even think it's that. One of the women's matches opens night 2. One of the women's matches takes place on night 1. And it's Cody Cena main eventing night 2. And Cody just beats Cena, and you end with like, hey, I'm going to point at Cody, and everybody goes, that's Mania this year? Where's The Rock?
Well, and I'll say this. It's perspectives, right? For the last several years, and especially this year for many good reasons, you have a very, skewed negative perspective.
Very much so.
I'm less optimistic after seeing The Rock on Raw.
Yeah.
But I'm still more in the vein of, like for example, I'm fine with Cody and Cena. I think no matter who he faces, Cena should win. I hated the Cena, I'm not going to win promo, because the idea should be, I am a full-time WWE guy this year. I'm going to fucking win WrestleMania and win the Royal Rumble, and I'm going out on top. But he really seems to be presenting it like I'm so grateful for everything. It's like, that's not what people want. People are going to want a major run, And you have the ability to do that. I don't know why they're acting like they don't. I don't know why he's beholden to like, oh, but my streak, I've lost so many matches, and nobody cares. You're John Cena. I get what you're trying to do, but no one cares.
I still feel like Cena Gunther makes so much more sense than Cena Cody.
If they do Cena Gunther, I think that's Triple H's way of being like, please restore the credibility of this secondary title. If you hold it, people can never say it's a secondary belt ever again, kind of thing.
And he gets that 17th title, and you have a very, very easy story to tell of the, we're not going to say it, but we're going to say it, Nazi-esque character. You could do it. You could have just you wink and nod. It's like Gunther has that kind of vibe, and not the man himself, but the character Gunther. Gunther has the vibe, not Walter. Let's put it that way, because he seems like a cool dude. And John Cena's, rah-rah American, whatever. But then again, do you really want to have that happen? Because look at the rah-rah American that was on this fucking show, Mr. Real American Beer, Hulk Hogan, who thankfully got booed out of the building like a motherfucker, like he should have.
I don't know why they keep putting this man out there. I'm going to come at this from a very real perspective for 2 seconds.
You have a real perspective.
Even just putting aside for 2 seconds the idea that this man went on Instagram saying, I'm a hero to be wearing a shirt that said MAGA powers. Putting aside that for 2 seconds, he can barely walk.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you keep putting this man out on TV? And then, look, MP, I've heard this discourse so much since Raw. Oh, he thinks it's political. It is.
Oh, it's partially political for sure. And look, everybody knows, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you know how we stand. So we don't need to even get into that.
But it's weird that because everybody keeps going, it's not political. Undertaker got cheered. Yeah.
Undertaker has gone on his podcast and been a problem when it comes to if you disagree with that perspective. If you lean left, you are not a fan of what the Undertaker has been doing. But he also hasn't been doing it as much.
Undertaker didn't say the N-word on film.
He hasn't done that. He hasn't politicked in the same way.
Pseudo apologize. Undertaker interviewed Trump. Yeah, we were all upset and disappointed by it. Absolutely, I'm not saying that. But he also didn't go in the middle of Madison Square Garden and say, "What you gonna do, you immigrants, to do this, to do that?" It's like, he didn't do that.
Right.
And also, Hulk Hogan didn't come out on a motorcycle.
Right.
You know, like,
and didn't come out to do what Undertaker did, which was
put over Rhea Ripley.
Fist bump Rhea Ripley, you're a badass.
Yeah,
which at that point you go, okay, look, I don't fucking like how much Undertaker's taken a blow from my fandom over these past couple of years, and the same with Kane. But okay, good. I personally, I would have rather Undertaker not come out. I don't think that was necessary in the slightest bit.
Well, they had him, and you can't do it the second week. And my thing is, like, if you dissect it, Undertaker's moment could have been even worse MAGA related because he came out to Kid Rock. Like, but it's the fact that he came out, put over a young talent, didn't grab a microphone, said fist bump, raised the fist in the air. Yeah, Rhea Ripley's fucking awesome, and that's cool. The Undertaker said that.
Hogan's like, hey, everybody, you all love me, don't you? Boo.
Let me tell you something, brothers.
You like my beer?
Many great partners. Randy Savage and Andre the Giant, and the people are just like, go away.
It's like, oh, I love Netflix too, and everybody's like, shut the fuck up.
Like, no I gotta tell you,
for anybody that's wondering, that's an Ultimate Warrior noise. It's not what you think it is.
You're not gargling a dick, no. Look, realistically, it's not like Hogan would have done any better if he'd come out in NWO colors, because I read that in the Fightful report of, like, people were suggesting he's gonna get booed, lean into it. But no one, like, he's gone too far. He was at the RNC. He was at, the MSG rally for Trump. He's like, he said full blown, like, I want to be with RK, and people, it's over. Like, it's sad for me as somebody who grew up with Hulk Hogan as, by the time I was growing up, a beloved legend, could do no wrong kind of thing, to just, like, literally, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become a villain. That's very true when it comes to Hogan.
Which, by the way, for anybody who's wondering, yes, I would vote for Harvey Dent over the MAGA side of things. Harvey Dent at least makes a lot of sense with what he's doing. So even the guy that coins the phrase of the, live long enough to become a villain, I'm like, I fucking get it. Flip a coin and shoot the bad people,
I'll tell you what I hate. I hate that this became the most talked about thing from the show. It's like,
it overshadowed a lot of things.
Were you expecting anything else? Was anyone expecting him to get cheered?
Right.
Like, why was this the most talked about thing? Yay, good, he got booed. Move on.
And there's other things that happened throughout this that just got completely buried that normally would be more of a talking point. Like, why did Paul Heyman and Roman Reigns say that there's going to be some kind of an acknowledgement thing on January 27th, and then walked into a room that had a WWE 2K25 sign on it.
Well, yeah, because he's going to be the cover star of the game. And
it's like, that's like normally like a big thing that would be like, oh, okay, let's run with that. It's like a big talking point for the week. And instead it's like, we're already done talking about it because that's all we need to say.
I will admit, the day after I had to do the article, and the reason I was shocked about that is because I was like, I thought that would get done during the show. You know, like that, like you said, would have normally been a big deal. But yeah, Roman's going to be on Raw January 27th. The game information is going to be revealed on the 28th. It's Roman on the cover. They've shown the cover. It looks good. It's wild to think that Roman's on the cover of this one because it feels like he should have been on the cover of the last 5. You know?
I mean, at a certain point, who are they going to put elsewhere? It's like, you got Cody, you got Roman. How many times can you put the same people on it?
It's because Ray got a cover. Cena got a cover. You know, they did a lot of these like legendary things to the point where Roman should have been on the cover. Now, technically, he did get on the cover with Becky, but they made a whole big deal about like, oh, Becky's on the cover too because a woman has to be on the cover too. And that's, by the way, along with women main eventing WrestleMania, something that did not become a yearly tradition. I thought for sure every year women are going to main event WrestleMania. Did not happen. I thought for sure.
Credit to them that they didn't feel like they needed to just do that for the sake of pandering.
Which is, again, terrible. Because, like, you do have some women that are deserving.
Who was last year? It was Cody, and then they had another one with
Cody, and then
Rhea?
they had Bianca and Rhea for the deluxe edition. Right. And they had like a legendary Sgt. Pepper style cover for the deluxe.
I still kind of think that instead of having one person on there, that they should just have like 4 or 5. Like,
yeah, I don't know why they. I guess it's because it's a 2K thing to be like the cover star, and you do like a whole marketing campaign around them.
And I guess you put them all on the back cover or something, and
nobody buys physical media anymore.
And it's like, who's gonna really like? I remember back in the day, I would go to Toys R Us, and this shows my fucking age. They didn't have anything on the shelf itself. They had the little plasticky cover of like the
little display case.
The little display case, and then you had the little yellow piece of paper. And you would just grab that, take that up to the counter. They would scan that code that was on there. Okay, here's your receipt. Go take that to the other window. And then when you hand the receipt to the people in the other window, they'll give you the physical copy of the game. And that was when...
Grandpa.
Yeah, that's... that's when I would... let's put it even more into perspective. When I had my... magazine thing that had been given out on, I think it was Toys R Us, that had a list of all the Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo and Nintendo and Game Boy games to go, oh man, there's that type of a Sonic game? I don't know that one. Just by text of Sonic Triple Trouble or whatever.
I gotta be a great game on the Game Gear.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that. But like,
I gotta be honest, like back in those days, it was Wild West too, where like
because you didn't know fuck all. You would just look at a cover.
Sell it for like $40. The next store would try to upcharge you for like 60. Like it's crazy the stuff that they used to get away with.
And you would buy a game going, all right, well, I don't know what this is, but it looks like it's a fighting game, and
I bought it, and now I need to enjoy it.
Now I need to enjoy it because my mom and my dad are mad at me because we spent $40 on a game, and I don't necessarily particularly love Double Dragons and Battletoads.
I'll say this. Obviously, I think there's like, what is there, 7-8 year age gap between us, but that's a feeling that I know all too well. Like I'm always telling my brother, like there's no such thing as a bad game to us because we just played what we had. You played what you had. But all that to say about the whole 2K25 thing.
Nobody's looking at the cover and going, oh, let me just go to a store and go, oh, that cover caught my attention. Let me maybe buy that game.
And if you are, that's when you put a bunch of people and a bunch of cool action shots on the cover.
yeah, to catch somebody's attention where they go, oh, what is this thing? Why are people like jumping in the air? And, there's a ring in there to actually show you what it is instead of just a red background with a person. It's the same as when it comes to movie posters. You could talk about the difference between movie posters and what they used to be. Look at an old Star Wars poster where it's fucking Luke Skywalker with a lightsaber and Darth Vader's mask, and there's a spaceship, and there's, an explosion.
Like, wow, that looks cool.
And then the movie posters that have been around for the past 10 years and stuff, even the Marvel ones, which, like, Marvel is crazy. You've got so much weird, wacky, sci-fi, action-y superhero shit that you could do. And credit to at least one thing, like the Captain America movie, which, by the way, Seth Rollins officially cut out of the movie. He is no longer King Cobra in there.
Terrible.
Which would be normally another thing I would rave about, but we've talked about this for the past couple months. So, at least when it comes to like the poster that I've been seeing most frequently with that, it's the new Captain America, Sam Wilson in his costume, holding up the shield with the Red Hulk fist punching it. Okay, cool. 9 times out of 10 these days, the poster is, here's Robert Downey Jr.'s head, and it says Iron Man. Or here are 15 people on the poster, and it says Avengers Infinity War, So with 2K, it's that, we talked about this a million times too, it's that completely pointless ego stroking. You all know, so shut up. Let me just do this as a different kind of marketing tactic that doesn't actually market itself. It just is something that we know that other people are going to then talk about. So they'll do the marketing for us. Because let's put it this way. Not only is nobody going to go ahead and buy this because Roman Reigns is on the cover, that they would be like on the fence about buying 2K25, but the amount of difference between who was going to buy it with or without Roman on the cover is negligible compared to how many articles are going to be written about how Roman Reigns was on the cover.
Yeah, and I'm going to write half dozen of them.
Right? It's like they know that and they're not wrong. So as much as it's stupid, it's like, all right, let's do that. And then we'll get all these people that'll go and talk about it, and they'll do the heavy lifting for us to put out articles about 2K25 and the tweet about it and whatever. And Gabriel Iglesias was on this episode.
Yeah.
He was just like, hey, remember how I'm that guy that likes the word fluffy and I haven't been funny in a bunch of years?
He's got a new special.
Sure. I wonder if he's talked about how he's fluffy in it. I wonder if it's all about how he's fat.
I'll be honest. I saw him live once. It was actually a very good show.
His Comedy Central Presents was fucking great.
Was amazing 20 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the same.
Actually, I believe that's the gist of the special this time around, is that he's like, oh shit, I'm getting old.
You can apply almost anybody that becomes a famous comedian and say their Comedy Central Presents is fantastic, and then everything went downhill. Jim Gaffigan. Oh god, what's the guy from The Hangover? Zach Galifianakis.
Zach Galifianakis' Comedy Central Presents is tremendous. Go find it. It's got to be on YouTube somewhere. Fat Jesus, as he was known at the time, was fantastic.
I mean, Dimitri Martin has a great one. Go back and check out, some people that didn't even get all that popular, like Brian Regan never took off, but Brian Regan is fantastic on that. Like, I still to this day think about the joke when he says spelled the word the name Brian, BRIVOLBN 7Q.
One of my favorites from Brian Regan. Hi, we're still talking about Raw. We'll get there. Was I moved to New York. I met my roommate. He was like, "Want a split of pie?"
Yeah, we gotta go halves on a pie. So we got half pepperoni, half pumpkin.
It's very funny.
Or the Fig Newtons.
Got a 3 Fig Newton eater.
I eat it by the sleeve. It's a wood chipper. All that. Like, yeah, a hell of a special. Hugh. Oh god, what was his name? Hugh. Comedy Central presents Hugh Fink. Very underrated. Comedy Central presents one.
Stephen Lynch.
Great one. Yeah, Pablo Francisco. I had a whole Greg Geraldo was great on that. Gary, somebody or other.
The point being,
Gabriel Iglesias,
was
same
on
scenario. He was on Raw.
He was also in the Big Show, which is still on Netflix.
We didn't even really talk about the idea. Rhea Ripley beat Liv Morgan for the Women's World Championship, and after the match, Dominic Mysterio tried to embrace her, so she put the title down, gave him a low blow. So that story seems like it's done. And the Riptide too. So I'm glad that seems to be over with, because it's been stretched out for far too long, and now we can move on to something else.
But we can't, because next Monday on Raw, Damian Priest will face Finn Balor in a street fight.
That's right. That's continuing at least. And then there's CM Punk beat Seth Rollins in a match that was just a match. Like, there wasn't anything that happened afterward.
I thought it was really good. If it wasn't the fourth match on a 3.5-hour show of promos, it would have been received better. I thought it was actually very good. I thought it was about as good as they would have delivered on pay-per-view. I was happy to see the Punk won. I thought they delivered as much as they possibly could have. But the only thing being, we didn't have to wait till Mania, which I'm a fan of.
And they can still have a feud going forward. Like, maybe we get Rollins might eliminate Punk from the Royal Rumble.
I don't think they're going forward.
You think this is one and done?
I think this is one and done for now. I think if they go forward, it's going to be because Punk wins the title, and now they need to revisit.
Any of that stuff is kind of like sort of up in the air, but
here's a fun one that we haven't talked about. It's been confirmed. Saudi's getting the Rumble next year.
Oh, that's right. We didn't talk about that, did we? Yeah, that sucks. How are they going to do the women's match?
I mean,
are they just going to have 30 women come out there wearing full jumpsuit type things, which that's ridiculous.
They've done a women's chamber. They've done a women's... They've had quite a few women.
That's a big difference, though, between the women's chamber having 6 women versus having 30.
Having 30 who want to go over, I think, is the most important. The thing you need to figure out.
I think that they'll get 30 going over. I just don't, like... Let them wear their gear. Like, look, I know politics, blah, 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 whatever the fuck. I don't care anymore. It's 2025, and clearly whatever I do doesn't matter anyway. But if you can't look at a woman's shoulder or ankle and not have a fucking ballistic attack in your brain and hemorrhage or whatever the fuck is happening with all these people or whatever, then that's your problem. Suck it up and deal with it, Buttercup, you know?
But they're giving us so much money, so we're going to let them host the Rumble.
55 million, it seems.
I said this on Blue Sky. This is pretty much my standard take on it. I love that they're not pandering to just the audience of one anymore. But boy, has that opened the door for them to just take in all of the money and suggestions from all of the overlords. And yeah, it's hard to really get behind that. Speaking of hard to get behind, let's talk about NXT.
NXT New Year's Evil started off with, or I shouldn't even say NXT New Year's Evil. I should say WWE New Year's Evil episode of NXT, because we definitely have confirmation at this point. We talked about this before, that all the NXT pay-per-views going forward, they're all just classified WWE. So it's no longer NXT Vengeance Day. We have confirmation for that now. It's going to be February 15th, I think it was. That's just WWE Vengeance
But
Day.
they insist on calling it NXT Vengeance Day. The logo just doesn't have the NXT logo on it.
Yeah, they don't call it in the same kind of way anymore, but hey, you know, it is what it is. That's a positive in some ways too. It's a little bit easier. The setup that, like, they did for NXT this time around, I was honestly a little bit surprised, because I didn't anticipate that they would start off exactly this way and continue the same way. They start off with Giulia beating Roxanne Perez. I figured that would happen. Maybe not necessarily the beginning, but that it would happen at least. Giulia beats Roxanne. We all saw that coming. Cool. Thumbs up. let's continue that discussion if Roxanne moves up to the main roster or whatever the hell happens next. But then they go into Eddie Thorpe is attacked backstage by somebody, and Ava's like, that's bullshit. You didn't fucking do that. Which I liked that was the case, that she was just like, look, I don't buy it. You've been doing this kind of shit, and I don't trust that this isn't some kind of a tactic on your end. So the match is still going on, and you go out there, you go out there. If you don't, then whatever. You would think by now, of course, with all the NXT Anonymous and all the other things, that they would install cameras, but you're not supposed to. It's a hey, shut up moment. Javon Evans has his jaw wired shut, and he's like, I'm really pissed at you, Ethan Page, and I'm gonna kick your ass. Maybe it should be an I Quit match, and he won't be able to say it.
Yeah, I was trying to think of how you can incorporate that into the story.
Then there was a number one contenders fatal 4-way. Stephanie Vaquer beats Cora Jade, Kalani Jordan, and Lola Vice over pinfall over Jordan. Now later in the night, there's a 6-woman tag. Tatum Paxley, Gigi Dolan, and Shotzi Blackheart beat Fatal Influence, and Shotzi pins Fallon. So later, still after that, backstage, Ava's like, so since Stephanie won that number one contenders match, she's going to have that match with Fallon. And Shotzi goes, yeah, but I pinned Fallon, so how about I get it? And
then Stephanie just goes,
all right.
Yeah, I'll give it. I hate that.
Like, realistically, Stephanie should be like, then that means that you should be the number one contender after I beat Fallon
Wait
Henley.
in line.
Or if I lose to Fallon Henley, then you get the next shot. But I guess they just wanted to stall this an extra little bit. And I'm anticipating Stephanie Vaquer and Shotzi ends in some kind of DQ. Fatal Influence attacks both of them. Ava comes out and goes, you were thinking that you were going to stop them from both being in that. But you know what? It's actually going to be a triple threat. And it's Stephanie Vaquer versus Shotzi versus Fallon Henley.
It's like, just give Stephanie the title without all the extra steps.
Yeah.
Just do it.
And I do think that Stephanie is going to be winning that title.
Yeah. Because
probably
now they can have her and Giulia. And it's like, new era. Because we love saying new era.
Yeah. I mean, Peter pointed this out on Twitter that all the women's titles changed hands over the course of the week, where it was, Tiffany Stratton wins on SmackDown, Rhea wins on Raw, and then Giulia wins on NXT. And I was like, I didn't even realize that. So, we're doing the big switch over with a lot of these things. And the women's Intercontinental and the women's United States, which women's Intercontinental title match next week, of course, Dakota Kai versus Lyra Valkyria. I think we're both rooting for Dakota Kai.
Yeah. Lyra will be fine. I just don't think it'll be... I don't think any of these will be as memorable as Chelsea as the first US champion.
And I don't think either Dakota Kai or Lyra Valkyria makes as much sense as if they would have just given this women's Intercontinental title to Natty.
Or Io, since they put her in the tournament.
Yeah, I still don't get that either. That's really fucking weird. But also the women's tag titles have a whole thing going on now, because Ava told Alba Fire and Isla Dawn that they're going to have a match next week with the Metaphor girls. And if Lash Legend or Jakara Jackson or Fire and Dawn, whoever wins that match, they're going to get a shot at Bianca Belair and Naomi. They didn't say when. So, maybe it's on SmackDown, maybe it's on NXT, whatever.
I'm going to guess Meta Girls win that and they just win.
I'm starting to think that that's probably going to happen, yeah. I think that they've done enough with Legend and Jakara hanging around that space that either they want them to win the titles, and then that's going to be their means to go up. Because look, Ora Mensa has not been around, and Noam Dar has not been around. So Metaphor, it isn't really Metaphor, it's Meta 2. And
they're the Meta Girls now.
Yeah, which that's not a name that they can really continue and be like the Meta Girls.
They own Facebook now, Tony.
Yeah. Maybe it'll be better off in there. But I also think that maybe there's something to the idea about them moving up because they like to keep couples together, and Lash Legend and Trick Williams are supposedly a couple, and we'll talk about him in a moment too, because in the same segment, Sarah Schreiber talks to Ava and it's like, what's up with Eddie Thorpe? And she's like, I don't know. Then Oba Femi comes over and he's like, fuck him, I don't care, I'm gonna win the belt. And next segment ends up coming around, and it's Ava talking with Ethan Page, and The Rock shows up again. And out of all the things for The Rock to say in this backstage thing with Ethan Page and all, he says, hey, Javon Evans is going to kick your ass at some point, but I've heard a lot about you, Ethan Page, and I'll see you on the main roster someday. And Ava, credit to where like the character goes with this, Ava's like, oh man, I'm really looking forward to that because Ethan Page is a pain in the ass. But then there's a weird thing where after The Rock slaps Ethan Page's ass and whatever, and calls him a sweet ass, get your sweet ass out of here, or whatever the fuck he said, I don't remember. The Rock asks Ava for advice on what to do, and she cuts this generic, you've done everything, but you've never been in front of an NXT crowd, so you should go out there and just feel it and speak from the heart, which is maybe the 8th time that we've heard this phrasing. So this is definitely a thing that's going around at WWE now. Pay attention to how people have their trends. Look, I say boils down to, Rob says, here's the thing. Callan says, fundamentally, and as I said, and whatever. They're loving this idea of you just go out there and you feel the crowd and you speak from the heart. So we'll come back to that. Because first off, then before that, we get Lexis King, quote, wins the Heritage Cup in a sudden death match.
No, he did win. You didn't watch last week because it was taped.
Well, on my defense, they still have him listed on the website as having been the champion since then.
In your defense, they did not change it. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, the Heritage Cup is listed under every metric possible as being that he won this on December 24th. So it's weird that they said that he won it without saying that he won it, even though he won it already. So he either won/retained the Heritage Cup over Charlie Dempsey in a match that wasn't even a Heritage Cup match because it was sudden death, so it was just one pinfall. I still don't think that the Heritage Cup is all that great. I really would rather them just get away with it. Especially because it's like, why is the Heritage Cup? It's not even an NXT UK anymore. If you really want another mid-card title.
He's got heritage.
I mean, Dempsey and King are two people that have more heritage than like Axiom.
Yeah, there you go.
If it just ends up being you can only compete for this belt if you're a second generation or more. All right, then Brooks Jensen wins it next.
That's kind of funny.
I'd be down for it. And then Oba Femi wins the NXT championship by pinning Trick Williams. I was so set on this idea that, hey, the obvious way of doing this, and look, I'll give them credit, like they didn't go with the obvious thing, so that's in and of itself kind of interesting that they didn't. And I'm fully fine admitting that I'm wrong in any scenario, because there's no point in acting like you're not wrong if you are. You're not going to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I was like, okay, the obvious thing is Eddie Thorpe is in this match, so Trick can pin Eddie, put that to bed. Oba Femi can say, you didn't beat me. Let's have another match at Vengeance Day or Stand and Deliver, whatever because at that point they hadn't announced Vengeance Day yet. And then Oba Femi beats Trick Williams there. Instead, they just went, fuck it. Let's roll with this big change at the beginning of the year. Oba Femi beats Trick Williams, pins him. Eddie Thorpe basically isn't even in the match, so I don't know why they bothered to do this. And now I'm wondering why they necessarily went in this direction, because I can't see it being worthwhile to have like Oba Femi versus Eddie Thorpe at Vengeance Day.
Well, you never know.
Is it just we need Trick to go up to the main roster now? Just get it over with? And is that why maybe Lash Legend Lash Legend can go up to the main roster and not win the women's tag titles? Or they could say Lash Legend attacked Jade Cargill and Jade Cargill interferes, and they can do all sorts of different things with this. But I was very shocked that this was Oba Femi just pinning Trick Williams.
I wasn't. I'm glad that he is that good. Like he's Oba Femi and he's gonna win. I'm all good with that.
Ooh. I love his little jig to the ring.
Somebody asked me why he walks like he's got to shut up his ass.
Because he's the shit, I'm telling you. Oh, that would have been a great ending this episode, but instead they decided, well, we need The Rock to come out there to say nothing. And boy, did he say nothing. Because he spent his entire time going, I've got goosebumps. They're telling me I've got 8 minutes. I got 7 minutes. I've got 6 minutes. Man, it's great to be here because you love to be here. It's great when you're here because you love being here. All right, everybody. That was so fucking stupid and pointless.
Now let's go a step further. They had 15 minutes when The Rock's music hit. He did nothing for the first 6, starts rambling for the next 4, and then starts going, they're telling me I got 2 minutes. Fuck all that noise. We're going to go however long we want. And then he goes, did you know that Raw was the show that you had to go to, but you decided to see the schlubs here at NXT, and thank you for that. If you smell what The Rock, what the fuck was this? What was any of this?
He could have done so much. He could have been like, we talked about the idea of maybe he brings in Hikuleo or Lance on Hawaii. Maybe he does some kind of allusion to like, hey, going forward, I'm going to be watching over NXT, and you just tease the idea that like maybe he's doing something with Ava and he's helping her out or whatever. Or like, I mean, anything would have been something.
But
he did nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
He did the least interesting, the least beneficial. Nobody gets anything out of this type of thing that he could possibly have done. And I'll put it this way. I don't know why they wanted him to do this in the sense of why they wanted him to do this. But I know why they wanted him to be on the show, which is people are going to watch because The Rock's going to be there and they're just going to say, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. And to be fair, NXT got their most viewership in years. It works.
It works, but it only works to a certain extent. Eventually, you do reach a point where people just go, okay, none of these things ever matter. And
see, but I don't want to be that. I'm fighting. Every fiber of my being is fighting, being like, none of this matters, because it's very easy to say that. And
I'm losing that fight.
You lost that fight maybe in May of last year.
I lost. I lose more and more of that fight depending on what you're talking about, what matters and what doesn't.
That is fair.
Less and less matters, let's put it that way. And nothing else matters. But yeah, I was very disappointed with this thing with The Rock, because they could have done anything. They could have had The Rock be like, man, I want to have a match with so-and-so. Or they could have had The Rock be the reason why Eddie Thorpe didn't even get into the match, because he was mad about the whole Ava thing. And they could have done...
You knocked down my daughter, you fucking...
Right, like, they could have done anything. And for somebody that's so good on the mic as The Rock... For him to just be like, I'll wing it. It
really felt like he wasn't lying when he said, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah, he was being dead honest about just, I have no idea what I'm going to say. So, in fact, I'm not going to say anything other than, isn't NXT great? Can you guys just clap? I mean, it could have been worse. He could have been like, so did you check out that Hulk Hogan beer?
No, he's the kind of person who would have totally shot him.
But instead he goes, oh, everybody's mad that I am happy about Cody. This felt very much like this wasn't the final boss character of The Rock, and this wasn't The Rock. This was Dwayne Johnson going out going, my daughter's here, you should respect her, and I'm a part of this corporate part of WWE, so I really want you to watch NXT, but I've got nothing to say. And man, let me just, while I'm at it, talk about my own personal feelings and vent. Oh, it's great about these goosebumps, and look at that. They're telling me to wrap it up, but I don't want to do that, even though I will. And oh, now you're all mad at me about the Cody thing. Well, I can't do anything right, can I? It's you know what? It's very like everybody's mom going, oh, I guess I just can't cook anything right, or like I guess I'm the worst mother ever.
Yeah.
You're all mad about the Cody thing. You wanted me to not be mad at Cody, and now you want me to be mad at Cody. I guess that's just the worst final boss ever in history. All right.
And he gave off more of that energy this week than ever before.
Yeah. And that, like, maybe the ratings, different story, but, like, they would have been better off not having The Rock come out and do any of that. Real quick, we joked about it temporarily, but we didn't really talk about it. But here's another thing before we get into the AEW side of stuff. The Vince McMahon tweet, McMahon, whether he intended to or not, and I don't think he intended to go in this way, tweeted out, "The case is closed. Today ends nearly 3 years of investigation by different governmental agencies. There has been a great deal of speculation about what exactly the government was investigating and what the outcome would be. As today's resolution shows, much of that speculation was misguided and misleading. In the end, there was never anything more to this than minor accounting errors with regard to some personal payments that I made several years ago while I was CEO of WWE. I'm thrilled that I can now put this all behind me."
Now, to be fair, two things can be true. Because yes, he is correct. He settled with the SEC, but he's still being sued civilly by Janelle Grant.
And I wouldn't put past them, whether it's Vince himself or it's his team or whatever, to have phrased it this way to try to make it seem like that incorporates that as well.
100%.
Yeah. So
100%.
Wrestle Votes, great account, very reliable and all. I think made a judgment error in just tweeting out Vince McMahon, the case is closed, which a ton of people then took as, this is about the Janelle Grant thing. Because people are paying more attention to that because it's more sensational.
Point. I think that's the point. You're supposed to be like, oh, he thinks the case is closed. Meanwhile, he's still being sued. Now, granted, he's not being investigated by governmental agencies. If that's the case, then yes, we're not. It's not like we're about to find out some wild, Diddy level shit, or at least we think we're not. But he is still being sued by Janelle Grant. Janelle Grant's team did issue a statement. I'm reading this from Fightful. It says, during his time leading WWE, Vince McMahon acted as if rules did not apply to him. Now we have confirmation that he repeatedly broke the law to cover up his horrifying behavior, including human trafficking. The SEC's charges prove that the NDA Vince coerced Ms. Grant into signing violates the rules, and therefore her case must be heard in court. While prosecutors for the Southern District of New York continue their criminal investigation, we will look forward new evidence into our case about the sexual exploitation Ms. Grant endured at WWE by Vince McMahon and John Laurinaitis. So her lawyer is saying, wait, the District of New York is still carrying out a criminal investigation against him, and that they're still working towards their, civil case.
Which, if anything, has been a recurring theme of the past year or so. I don't fucking trust any of these courts to do anything about any bad person anyway, so it's inevitable ticking clock of somebody pays somebody off, and then somebody ends up being like, all right, well, this charge changed to something else, and, whatever. So eventually we'll get a cases closed. We all know what's happening, but we can't quite say it, but, kind of a thing, and then we'll talk about that on another episode of the Hot Takes. But that's the newest when it comes to the Vince thing. So be weird if we didn't mention it.
I guess I was going to say Daniel Bryan. I don't know why. Eric Bischoff said that Vince is, he's got a new studio for that company that we had heard about a couple weeks ago or whatever. I imagine at some point it's going to come out that he's either just doing Alpha Entertainment again or some Fox Nation project. Like,
this is not the timeline I wanted to be on.
No, it's not, but here we are.
Why did Undertaker have to lose that streak?
I don't know if that has everything to do with it anymore. I think too many things have happened to the timeline after that?
It's a whole house of cards. If that wouldn't happen, a whole lot of other things wouldn't happen. Damn you, Brock. See, I mean, the part of it still comes back to
I guess so.
You gotta admit, it's a little strange. So, at least on the WWE side of things, that's it. So let's get into some outside of WWE stuff and kind of wrap up with our New Japan and AEW and so on and so forth. Wrestle Kingdom 19 and Wrestle Dynasty happened. Now, you can check the results. We're not going to run down every single thing that happened. I will be perfectly honest. I watched about, I would say, half of this between the two of them. I was paying a lot of attention to Wrestle Kingdom at start. I really watched more Wrestle Kingdom than I did Wrestle Dynasty, honestly. But I very quickly also realized that I really didn't need to spend a whole lot of time putting a lot of attention on certain matches because I wasn't really into them. So while I watched the Rambo, I was like, all right, I don't know they have these people. So when I don't know, say Kenta comes out, I'm like, all right, I'm familiar with good old Hideo Itami from NXT, and hey, Alex Zane comes out, he's got a weird ass mustache now. That's something. But I wasn't what do we get between Hiroki Goto and Great Khan? Because to me, I'm not invested. So being an outsider, a lot of these things fell short. My biggest takeaways from all these, I was not really surprised about the results of the things that I actually had any kind of perspective on. Like I had said before with the predictions, my win with Tommy against AZM, it was just Azumi. I keep forgetting about that. I was not tapped into it at all. So it was all right, title changes where it doesn't. I don't fucking have any kind of perspective. But I guess they gave the TV title to Phantasmo as a congratulations, you got over the cancer stuff, which is pretty cool.
Always a fan of that.
Tanahashi beat Evil, which was pretty self-explanatory because if he would have lost, he would have retired from ring, and he said he's going to retire next year. So okay. And then Katsuyori Shibata came out and was just hey, how about another match for Dynasty? So that was okay, let me rush and do that for the news.
That was cool until I found out it was going to be a 5-minute match.
Yeah. Keshida beat Shingo Takagi, and then on Dynasty, he retained over Tomohiro Ishii.
Almost the MVP of the weekend. Yeah. It's arguable, but he would be one of mine.
Another title change happened that wasn't necessarily supposed to happen, or at least not in this way. But man, Desperado wins the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship because Dookie suffers an injury during the match, and that looked awful. That arm just ooh.
Yeah, that was nasty, but best wishes to him, man. That's honestly terrible.
I would hope at least that in that time frame that he was just in that kind of shock where it didn't hurt, That's the best you can hope for at that point. That was terrible. So hopefully he gets healed up pretty soon. Yota Tsuji beat David Finlay to win the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship.
That's pretty cool. I'm glad he's got a championship. He defended it successfully against Jack Perry in an okay match, but it was easily the weakest match on Dynasty for me. He's also going to be fighting Gabe Kidd soon, and I think Gabe Kidd should probably win that belt because I think Gabe Kidd should just win everything right now.
He lost to Kenny Omega.
In one of the best matches you'll ever see. I don't know how the internet decided the commentary was more of a talking point.
Naito beat Takahashi. Zack Sabre Jr. retained over Shota Umino. Then he retained
that
over
was disappointing
Ricochet.
for Naito and Takahashi. I mean, Shota Umino, they gotta switch it up. He needs to turn heel. He needs to start a new faction. He's in need of what Finn Balor did when Balor turned heel and created Bullet Club. We're in need of something else here, fellas. Not working for Shota. But he did beat Claudio, which I was surprised about.
other things to talk about throughout here, because like, yeah, again, like Shota Uminobi, Claudio Castagnoli, like you can go through the list and you can see the other ones. Watanabe won the International Women's Cup.
Very disappointed in that.
I don't know what her title match choosing is
More
at this point.
specifically, I was disappointed because they pinned Athena. They pinned Athena for this. What, like...
After her being as much of like this undefeated type thing, it sets up this. Like,
you couldn't pin Willow, who's been pinned numerous times?
Like, is she just gonna beat Athena for the ROH title?
Probably not.
Like, I don't know. It's kind of strange. Tons of Texas retained.
I took a bathroom break during that match.
Time limit draw for the exhibition match between Tanahashi and Shibata. Mercedes Moné beat Mina Shirakawa, so now she's got 3 belts.
It's actually 4 belts. There's 4 belts she's carrying around.
All the belts.
She's finally getting to the point where she's having a good run.
There was Young Bucks won the IWGP tag titles.
They seemed so much happier.
It's so weird that they seem happier doing that, and Kenny Omega's like, I rediscovered myself in New Japan and all. And I don't know. It's kind of like, do they want to leave? It's just like, if we got to the point where Tony Khan was like, all right, Cody, we disagree. And Cody's like, all right, I know where this is heading. Fuck off. I'm going to see you later. I'm going to go to WWE and be their second biggest person there. And maybe the Bucks and Kenny are like, we get less and less and less of what we wanted to do with AEW, and this is becoming more and more of world's best wrestling. What's the catchphrase that's happening now? We're the best wrestle.
Well, actually, it's Tony Schiavone screaming, "This is a Dynamite moment."
But what would you did with the CM Punk world's best wrestling thing that Tony Khan wanted to start? The promotion would have been WBW. And the big catchphrase, "We're the best wrestle, WBW." Why are we getting new logos for everything? Why is it the Casino Gauntlet and never the Casino Battle Royal in the same way? And there's no Face of the Revolution ladder match, and there's no this is okay. We're in phase
Most
2.
Of that's just speculation, but that "we're the best wrestle" thing is pretty funny.
I think we're in phase 2 of Tony Khan being like, okay, I've played your games long enough. I'm the owner of this company. You can fuck off and do what I want. And we're starting to see that he wants to do New Japan. New Japan plus Ring of Honor. Yeah, I mean, like, I didn't really watch a lot of this. Like, I didn't pay super duper attention to, like, I'm not going to really have my eyes glued to the screen for Sons of Texas, whatever.
The long and short of it for me is Dynasty was the much better show. Go out of your way to watch anything Takeshita did. Go out of your way to watch that Omega match. It's legitimately one of the best matches I've ever watched live. I'm glad I was awake for it and watched it live. It was very, very good. Tanahashi cried. Full tears.
And then we got AEW for Dynamite. And this was kind of a episode for me, to be honest. Like, not much happened, yet there were some things to report on. Like, Will Ospreay beats Money Matthews. And then he's like, hey, by the way, if you ever need another guy, which then becomes another talking point. Malakai Black seems like he's leaving AEW.
He doesn't seem like it. It really just seems like he's gone.
So I guess this might be the end of the House of Black, because Julia Hart's not really doing anything necessarily being involved with them. And Brody King's off doing his matches, and Buddy Matthews, you can't have House of Black without Malakai Black, really. So I think they're all just splitting and going their separate ways, and that's okay. Malakai Black wants to go back to WWE. I'll welcome Aleister Black in matches against some of those new people.
Aleister Black.
There's probably people out there that aren't big Simpsons fans that are like, why do they say it like that? And to them, I say, Sometimes you just say things weird. Sometimes it's a Simpsons joke.
Yeah, I think they'll still be together to some extent, especially Buddy and Brody. But if he wants to go, I hope he's happy. I heard this on a Fightful podcast earlier before we got on the call, where somebody said, "Oh, I hope he gets to do what he wants, and if he goes to WWE, because I really thought we would get that in AEW." And I'm usually good about this, but I couldn't help myself. I was like, "Are we talking about Andrade, Miro, Punk, Cody? Like, how many times has this story not been told of like, okay, well, I hope that they get to do what they want because I thought that's what AEW was for." Ethan Page.
Yeah. Ricky Starks wants to leave. Hey, and some of them, they just cope.
Yeah, and okay. Cope, I'm all right with this. I'm starting to wonder where he's getting this title shot. Is he going to Australia? So far, the only thing we know about Australia is the winner of the Women's Casino Gauntlet next week will face Mariah.
Mariah's going to have a match in the meantime with Harley Cameron. It's non-title. They basically are just like, hey, tits are great, aren't they? And it's like, I mean, you're not going to have me disagree. Hot girl graps.
Tits are good.
And Harley Cameron's funny and all.
She's great.
But Statlander beat Tony Storm and Willow Nightingale. She's going to add her number 1 of the Women's Casino Gauntlet. Tony Storm's like, I'm not ready to do this yet because I'm, reverting back in time and everything. The Men's Casino Gauntlet was won by, I was surprised, Powerhouse Hobbs.
I wasn't, because as the match is going on, I go, wait a minute. Hobbs was in the ring with Mox when he got hurt. Wait, he needs a guy. I was like, are they gonna go with Hobbs? I didn't think that he would just pin Kyle off of a spine buster.
Yeah, that was a very surprising
my undisputed era boys just keep flopping. It's very sad for me.
And when they had the people come out, it was Jay White, Adam Page, Wheeler Yuta, Ricochet, Adam Cole, Daniel Garcia, Hobbs, Roderick Strong, Lance Archer, which I was a little bit surprised about, Kyle O'Reilly, and Jeff Jarrett. I was like, all right, well, some of these make sense, some of them don't. And like, it's not going to be Wheeler Yuta, it's not going to be Ricochet, it's not going to be Jeff Jarrett immediately getting a title shot, that kind of thing. But I was still surprised. I thought that maybe it could have been like a Daniel Garcia, or maybe it could have been, maybe Adam Cole just moves on.
Yet. That would have been fun.
So that's going to be at Maximum Carnage, which immediately every time I think of that, I think of the intro from the video game.
I hope somebody makes like a Spider-Man based artwork for next week or something. Like, that's pretty cool. What else happened?
Seems like Jarrett's going to feud with MJF, which is actually something I wrote up about at one point, thinking that could be a good way to do that. This isn't how I wanted them to. Seems like the Hurt Syndicate is going to beat Private Party to win those tag titles.
I'm all for that, though.
100% down for that. And we had that Kenny Omega thing where Kenny Omega cut a promo about how he's back and the diverticulitis and everything that was setting him back for so long, and he wasn't sure if he would survive, let alone be in the ring again. Don Callis' family attacks him. Will Ospreay helps, and they end the show with them staring down each other.
And we know it's Omega versus Brian Cage next week. I don't know of two minds about this. On the one hand, you had to kind of finish something.
Finish the story.
And, this is better than Jericho and the Golden Jets. Remember that?
Oh, God, yeah. Completely forgot about that.
But I'm mad that in like a year and a half, and we're just going back to Don Callis.
And Jericho is going to have a match next week, and
Jericho's going to face.
They're going to have the cope side of it, which is like, okay, why are they? Okay, that's another thing. Yeah, I mean, this was an episode of Dynamite that I felt like, while we did have some things progress, there were also things that were just sort of there. And, not every episode has the most bombastic things in the world, so it was fine. And at this point, I'm kind of going into these next couple of weeks with, like, there's nothing that's particularly sounding amazing to me for Maximum Carnage or for Grand Slam quite yet, but there's still a little bit of time for them to add some more matches in there, so maybe they'll twist it around and maybe it'll change my mind.
Yeah, and I'm excited for all of it. I still just enjoy watching wrestling. I just get very bummed out when it's like there's so much filler on these things, you know?
All of these shows, WWE and AEW, would be so much better
filler.
off if they would just stop it with the filler. And like sometimes less is more. And I mean,
and I just feel like we're not ever going to be in that era ever again because you know, money.
Yeah.
Money changes everything, as she likes to say. Wow, can you be any more transparent?
Yeah, it can be. I really hate her promos, and this Monet thing sucks. There you go. It's more transparent. Just, but that is our lineup for the hot tags. And as we said, less is more. We don't want to go too much deeper into other things. But
Although
if you want
we
us to talk
definitely went
more,
on quite a few tangents today, and you're welcome.
But if you want us to talk more about Comedy Central Presents or something, you could always do that on the Fanboys Anonymous, different like Patreon or whatever tiers. Share your support on all the different ways that we mentioned before. Make sure that you're following us on the Linktree stuff. Go to amangotree.com. You'll find links to all sorts of different things there. And make sure you're following what Rob's up to too.
Yep, follow me over at Dude Felice. Check out my work on Fightful. And I thank you for your support.
And we thank you for listening. We also thank you in advance for leaving your comments. And if you didn't, then that's something that's really disappointing because I already thanked you for it, and you shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to guilt trip you. Yeah, come on.
How about you put a little effort towards us?
All right, everybody. Well, we will see you next time around with, I am assuming, probably our fantasy booking cards for the Royal Rumble mock draft that we had done. I have mine all set up. I actually have my WrestleMania that I would come out of that with set up. I had to actually book in reverse to figure out what I would want to do with the Royal Rumble. It was kind of strange. So I explained that. Whatever we record that, I don't know, we'll do maybe Tuesday or something. We'll figure that out. And we also have some announce tables coming up soon for Royal Rumble stuff and, of course, more hot tags and everything else. So stay tuned for all that. If you want us to do something else in the meantime, pick your poison over on Patreon or YouTube. Other than that, though, adios. This has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.